Welcome back. So, in our today's session, we will be going to see the difference between authentication and authorization. So, as we were learning more into the API testing and then Postman overview, we always got a question that why Postman has only the authorization, not the authentication, to get some of the resources from the API calls. Like if you want to do a post call or patch call or a delete call, okay, you don't need to really authenticate yourself. So this question normally arises, and then people get confused the difference between authentication and authorization. So I've just listed out couple of points in an easy way so that you will be clarified your doubts, okay, so that you will come to know in a better way. Okay, so talking about authentication, what is authentication? So this is basically who are you, in the sense like who are you? So are you really authenticated to kind of enter to do something? So it's the basic example is that let's talk about a facebook.com. You want to access your profile, so you will basically will go and enter the username and password, and that's where it will authenticate whether it is matching with the database information or not. Okay, and if you are successfully logged in, then it means that you are authenticated. Whereas the authorization is basically what are the different things you can do that. In an instance, let's say that there are 5 different tasks a particular application has, and when you log in, the authorization basically says, do you really have those accesses to do these 4 different tasks, or you can do only specific task out of the entire functionality of the application. Okay, to just give more explanation to this, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so authentication. What is authentication? So this is basically the process of verifying the user identity. As I told you, you need to prove yourself who exactly you are. Okay, now the same thing, authorization says that it is basically process of giving the access to certain resources, files, objects. So let's say that you are accessing as a guest to a particular application, then you might not have access to everything, right? In a sense, a basic example I will give you. Think about that you are accessing somebody's system or laptop or desktop. So in that case, what happens? So that particular owner of that particular laptop, he or she would have created 2 accounts. One is their own personal, which is an administrative account where they have access to everything. They can delete a file, they can add a file, they can do anything. They can go to the system properties, they can change something. But think about, they have created a guest account for you and you are logging in. So that logging into the laptop is nothing but authentication. Once you authenticated, or when you entered into the laptop, now what are the different things you can perform there? Can you delete a file? Can you edit something into your system variables? Because you are a guest, so you don't have all the privileges that the owner have. So that process of giving certain permissions is nothing but the authorization. Okay, so authentication, there are different types are there. One is username and password. So you have to enter the username and password, which is very generic and we all know, right? One time password. So let's say that you are accessing into some banking application. So after entering your username and password, which is matched with the database, once that is verified, then you might be getting an OTP that is called as one time password. It would be like to any of your RS chip device, or like it would be like into your mobile messages as well. The same thing if you are using a mobile handset, so you might be enabled your biometrics, so that even though you have authenticated by using the username and password, then they might ask you to have the thumbprint or some kind of verification. So that is nothing but specific to the mobile devices. Two-factor authentication, like you might be knowing, there are semantic VIP, or you might have used the Google Authenticator. So it's basically you are pairing the application, mobile application, to your account. So when you are authenticated, the next thing you will get a code or a kind of a notification to your app that do you want to really approve this or not. In Google nowadays, you will see if you are accessing the Google account in some other machine, then you will get a digit, actually kind of a 2-digit number, where you have to verify if you have seen the same 2-digit on your mobile screen or not. okay, for security reasons. So these are nothing but a different types of ways to authenticate whether it is you or someone else. Okay, for more security reasons, you will see the other three things nowadays they are adding it. Fine. Now the same thing, what is the authorization types? You will see an API key. So it's very straightforward. When you enter the username and password, you will be getting a what do you call a alphanumeric values. So it would be like a string. We call it as a key. Now that key will be determining what exactly that user has access. Whether can you do 1, 2, 3, 4 tasks, or you are not allowed to do certain tasks from the entire functionality. Basic auth, it is again a authentication key. You need to the API call will send you a auth key which you can use to access the resources from the application. So OAuth2.0, so it is basically the open standard authorization, which is very popular, and nowadays almost every applications they are using this standard to authorize a particular user. So we will come to know more detail in a couple of minutes. Okay, so now talking about the authentication example, it's basically talk about a banking application which we all will be using, right? Any of your banking application or wherever the account is you are holding with. So you will be logging into that. So whether you are a bank employee or a bank customer, you will be authenticating yourself by entering the username and password. So that is basically, it will allow you to access the features. Now authorization, what would it be? So think about, you are using a banking app, but as a user or as a customer, you are accessing to the bank application. So you might be able to see only your details, right? Like you can see what are the different transactions you have done, what are the different accounts that you have linked with your own account, or you can withdraw, you can send the money to someone else. So those kind of things you will access into your bank application. Now giving all these accesses where you have only your account access and sending money to someone, or else like you can see the history of the transaction, all these accesses basically will be determined by the authorization, okay, based on your user account. If it is an employee, let's say that you are a bank employee and you have logged into the bank application, probably you have access to all the users' account numbers, the details, maybe their balance details, but you really cannot send the money from one account to another account. You can just do a read only or a kind of monitoring purpose, or maybe some kind of access where like let's say your account gets locked, then the bank employee or the admin can unlock you to get access, or reset your password, or sending a reset link. So kind of these features, which is administrative features, will be accessible by the bank employees login. So now when you do this kind of logins, right, the API call will give you an API key or a basic auth or a auth2 or 2.0 kind of a token. That token will be determining what accesses you have from the application. Okay, see, normally what happens when you are talking about a bank application, the bank application will not be like a two different applications, right? One is for your employee and another is for your customers. It's basically one application only. The source code could be one actually, but when you log into that, the UI, the features which you are getting, that's where actually the authorization will tell you this account should have these features, these screens. So that is what it is determining. Now OAuth 2.0, one of the best example is nowadays you would have seen single sign-on login. So if you are using like let's say Trello, or if you are using Spotify, or even so many other applications nowadays which is coming, so they don't really mandatory or make you mandatory to have your own account created for that particular application. What they say, they will pop up you a screen on the sign up where they will tell you that okay, if you have a outlook.com email address, or a Gmail, or a Yahoo, or let's say an Apple account, you can use those accounts to basically log into this particular application. So one simple example I'm telling, let's say that you are using a Spotify web portal to listen to music. Now let's say that will ask you to kind of what you call to log in or to create an account, because they want to keep your personalized playlist to listen to the music. So what kind of music you are interested, from which location, what is the language, that so that based on that they will personalize the music or the song for your own account. So the account is mandatory. Now you might not want to have what you call lot of different accounts to create, right? Like you might have 500 applications where you want to create your account. Now you can't really maintain all these accounts, right? So they give you an access where, okay, if you have a Gmail account, don't worry, we will take that Gmail account and then we will help you to kind of log into our application and we will personalize the songs for you. Okay, so I think the API key, basic auth, all these things are very much understandable. Let me quickly show you that. So think about, there is a basic auth actually. So which is like, if you go to this demo application, which I've shown in our previous session as well. So this is a RESTful Booker, a kind of a demo API call site where you can perform the CRUD operation using the API calls. So the first thing, before you do any kind of patch or put or delete call, you need to get a authorization key. So this is basically, we call it as a bearer token. Now what happens when you really want to do something or edit the resources, you need to provide the token actually. Now this token will basically determine whether you have access to do that particular task. Okay, so this is very straightforward in the sense, first you have to do this get token, and it is basically a post call where you have to provide your what you call username and password. So it means that your authentication will have to have first, which will give you a token actually here. So if you see in my test tab, I have taken a token from the response, I'm reading that, and this token I will be using across my other calls. If you want to do anything, if you want to edit something into a resource, or let's say you want to delete some resource, so you have to provide that token. Hey, this is the token, this is the resource I want to use it, or I want to update something. Now this particular application will take that token, and that token is basically provided by the same application. So this token will have a permission level that, okay, for delete you have the access, for edit you don't have access. So based on that you can perform the actions. So this is basically your API key or basic auth. OAuth 2.0 is bit different or bit complex for more security reasons, but I'm not going to much detail into that because we are not going to develop anything. We are just going to test and understand the terminologies, right? So let me explain you in a simple format. So we understood, right, single sign-on. So basically the single sign-on uses the OAuth 2.0. You might have heard about 1.0, which is like bit pretty legacy way. Nowadays everybody is migrating to 2.0 to simplify the process actually. So now let's understand the OAuth 2.0 in detail or in an high level. Okay, so think about you want to create an account with Spotify, but you don't want to create your own account. So what Spotify does, Spotify gives you an option where it will ask you, okay, do you have Google account or do you have an Apple account? You're good to go. You don't need to create an account, but rather give me access to your Google profile so that I can take certain information. Because while you have created the Apple account or Google account, you might have given your name, the full name, and like your address, like which location you are residing, probably your contact number, your address, or maybe certain interests of yourself. So those things you would have provided, and that is all your Spotify requires, right? Spotify doesn't want a lot of more detail about you. So what Spotify will ask you, it will give you an interface where you can have your Google platform. Let me show you that also in a moment, but let's first understand this one. So you logged into you entered the Spotify URL. After that you will be asked to sign up. let's say that you are choosing Google account to log in. Now when you choose the Google, what happens? Google, the Spotify will redirect you to the Google account, actually Google URL. So there will be a specific URL that Google have already created. It's not Spotify, let's say any other third-party applications, they want to use your account details. For that reason, Google have created that platform or that UI for you. So when you enter the username and password, right, what happens? One authorization request goes to the Google's server, actually. So this is basically client. You are a consumer, and then this is your client, this is your application server where you are giving the access, asking for an access. Okay, so the authorization request is sent after authenticating yourself. If that is successful, your username and password, when you are entering to the Google platform, then Google will give one request token to Spotify by saying that, okay, this person is authenticated now, and then we are authorizing to access our resources. That's where they will give you a token. This is basically a first level of authorization. Once that is done, now Spotify needs certain resources, or certain resource in the sense certain information of that user. Now Spotify will mention that, okay, now because you have given me the access, the next thing I need, these are the different resources I need, means the user profile details like the address, contact number, the full name, all this information. Now what happens? The user will be provided an option to allow or decline that. Let's say the user clicked on allow on the Spotify platform only. Now this allow request will go to the Google to ask another permission. Okay, so first thing is that there will be a connection done between Spotify and Google. Okay, these two particular applications. Now it is the duty of the user to kind of allow whether to have these permissions or not. Once the user allows that, then there will be one access token will be given to Spotify. Now whenever Spotify need any of the information on a need basis, this access token will be sent with the request, actually. So let's say now Spotify now need the location of that particular user. Now Spotify will ask for the location access. Now location means Google would have created a location API which Spotify know already, or the developers of Spotify will be using the Google API to request the location. Along with that, they will send this access token, because this access token will determine whether this particular user has that access to get the location or not. This request will be keep on going. So any kind of request that you are sending to Google, it will be sent along with the access token to verify that if that particular resource is permissible or not. So this is a very high level that I'm talking about the OAuth 2.0, but then we can really use the Postman to kind of have the authorization here. If you see, this says the authorization header, nowhere it is telling that authentication. So these are the different types of authorizations are there, like API key, bearer token, basic auth, digest auth. So this is basically two types of authorizations, and then OAuth 1.0, and then I think Trello uses the 1.0, but then if you come to your Twitter and then Spotify, so these all, and then Imager if you have used before, so those use the OAuth 2.0. and then Hack Authentication, AWS Signature. I really don't have idea this last four options. So probably as we go along and more you would dig down to that, you will come to know these are the authentication types. So this is one of the example of the sign-in token, single sign-on. There would be like another thing. Let's say that you are doing something and then you want to connect with your Google Drive or Apple Cloud to, maybe let's say that you want to share certain of your files from your account. So in Google Drive, let's say you have different types of file permissions, right? You can create a file based on a public access where any of the third-party applications can go and access it once you authorize that. You might have certain private files which you cannot access. So these authorizations will decide whether that particular client will have access to these files or not. So that's where also we will use the OAuth 2.0 actually there. Okay, so basically if you see, this is bit easy to understand actually, the difference between API key basic auth. So API key basic auth is between a user like us and the application. Okay, when you talk about OAuth2.0, it is not in between the end user and the application, but it is the communication or the access between two different applications. As a mediator, for your ease of use the internet or the resources, you are giving that permission so that you don't need to maintain lot of accounts. The same thing now here, the Spotify need not to keep the information, right? Let's say Spotify will not allow any of the users to create an account. They will say, if you have Google or Apple, you just go to their you authenticate yourself into the Google, and Google will give me those information. I don't want to maintain my own database to keep the username, password, and then have the security and all those things. That Google will be take care of that. Now, what is the benefit that Spotify gives? The maintenance will be reduced of keeping all those credentials safe. Now, what the benefit that Google is getting? Google is getting more user base, and then maybe probably tomorrow Google says that Google will ask for some money to Spotify, that okay, if you want to keep my single sign-on system into your account, you have to pay for me. So maybe for a monthly basis or yearly basis, they will be asking for some money. So that's how Google will be taking the benefit actually, because they have already the database. Now they're just exposing the information of their user actually to other platforms. So that is the main benefit of integrating these applications together. So hope you guys have understood that, but let me just quickly show you that whatever we have spoken about the Spotify, how exactly that works, that will give you an idea what exactly I was talking. So let me open the Spotify. So if you go to, so this is basically the Spotify app where you can access into the mobile or even into your web application to listen to music. Now when I'm going to the sign up, you can see it is asking two options. So it is asking is Facebook. Let's say you have a Facebook account, so you can use that. If you are using a Google account, you can just use that. So you will just click on this, and after that it will give you the accounts that you have logged in before. Now if you see this URL, you can see, observe it, it is accounts.google.com and then OAuth2. Here you can see. Now that's how you will come to know that it is Google's own website actually. There would be like a chance of somebody can hack you. Like Spotify can do one thing, instead of account.google.com, they might have their own URL, and the layout will be very much similar like your Google, where you will just click on your account and then you will be entering the username and password, and that's how Spotify can capture the username and password. Normally that is not happening with OAuth and all those things. There are so many security layers in place so that nobody can hack that one. And one best thing, as a layman perspective, you need to make sure whenever you are using the Google or Facebook, make sure that the URL is an authenticated URL or a proper URL that it is redirecting. So hope you guys have got an idea about the difference between authorization and authentication, and then which comes first, which comes after. Okay, fine. Now by taking all these things into consideration, we will be looking some more authentication and authorization types in Postman, and later you can use that by using into the automation test scripts as well. Okay, so fine. So that's pretty much it for today. Please do subscribe to this YouTube channel, and thank you for watching.